What's up, guys? I'm Zeke.
And my name is Jacob.
And we are techs here at Apple Pie Repair. All right, Jacob, tell me what we're going to be looking at today.
Alrighty, it looks like I slide that side panel right off. It's pretty easy.
Okay, but what console?
Oh, this is a PlayStation 5,
okay,
man.
All right, because it kind of looks like you're a little bit nervous.
Oh, yeah? It's my first time ever doing this, so...
I mean, I can tell, but... mainly what we're trying to do is kind of show you what we do here at Apple Pie. And, I mean, you also look kind of nervous up there a little bit.
Right. Yeah. I was a little shaky, just trying to make sure that I did things the right way, like I normally do, like off camera.
I know, but you always end up doing them the right way.
Right.
But... in this case specifically, and I know I struggle with consoles because consoles have a bajillion screws for some reason, and they're very hard to take off. Some of them are hidden. Like if you see really closely on the camera right there, where you can see that there's a little part that you're removing.
Yeah.
A sticker that hides a screw. I have no idea why companies end up doing this.
Right.
But why do you think that they hide screws like that? I mean, I know, but...
I mean, they don't want us to have the right to repair. They would rather them repair it and charge, ridiculous amounts of money for it.
I know, and a lot of competition is steep, first of all.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, there are these companies that don't want you to even touch your devices before you even get to them.
No, man. They're like, come on, bring it to us. We don't want you to go and repair your own stuff, and and it's sad, honestly.
Now, honestly, there's been so many people throughout the entire 2.5 years that I've worked in tech repair that you have your legacy customers.
Yeah.
As you can see, you're just taking out the screws here, which everybody's like, yeah, I could do, no problem. And then they end up taking their phone and blowing it up, and then bringing it to us and saying, hey, man, can you repair this blown up phone?
Right.
What's your most iconic story?
Well, I've had yesterday or the day before yesterday, I believe. We had somebody come in and their phone had been run over by a semi truck, and it was in shambles and
perfectly normal thing. I cannot emphasize perfectly normal situation, but keep going.
Right, absolutely. Their frame was cracked, and the back glass and front glass were both cracked, and it looked like there was a big bend right where the board was, and so we then deemed it unrepairable.
I think as obviously.
It's unrepairable. When the board is snapped in half, it's unrepairable, and you're better off going and grabbing a new phone, which is kind of, against what we're doing here is repairing. Sometimes you have to tell people when to cut their losses, because people, that are not in the repair industry don't know when to cut their losses.
I mean, I know, and looking here, as again the very delicate process of just taking things apart and taking your time and slowly taking them apart. Whenever I hear the nightmare words, hey, I have a relative that can do this, it always freaks me out, because if you look very carefully of how Jacob is taking these parts apart, he's doing it with very much a air of delicacy of, I gotta remove this screw and I gotta remove this one. And I have no idea how you keep them all organized. Every time I do them, it always ends up in a mess. How do you do that?
Well, I kind of have a system. I have a system of organization. It's kind of the best thing to do is just have a system of organization. Kind of just, you're not really throwing screws all over. That would be one of the things that you would do if you didn't know what you were doing, if you were kind of just arrogant to how things came apart. It's kind of like any industry, when you're taking things apart, like a mechanic or something like that, they have certain ways of taking apart certain vehicles and certain other things, and you're just just take things apart in the right way.
And completely overcharging you for every single step,
right.
Which is something that we don't do. Just camera number one, camera number two. We are real repair technicians that understand the value of the customer's dollar, because I know I would want my phone fixed in a way that isn't out to nickel and dime me. The companies do it enough as is. Well, what's your favorite console to repair? Because mine is not the PS5. Although the PS5 looks cool.
Yeah. It kind of looks like a little spaceship. Looks like something from Star Trek.
It looks dumb. That's what it looks like.
Well, it's arguable. The Series X kind of looks like a fridge. So,
I would rather take a fridge than a spaceship. Like, where am I going to put this?
We're going into space, man. We're going into,
When? Well, when is that? Let me know when that is happening.
Absolutely. When companies are now looking to see, that more futuristic kind of look, which, the PS5 definitely gives off. I feel like the Series X does too. I mean, that matte black finish looks really good on the Xbox Series X. But I feel like the PS5 has a lot more, user compatibility. Like, you can really repair it. Like, you could put your M.2 slot, you could put your M.2 SSD, your own M.2 into SSD into the PS5 console, as long as it's PCIe Gen 4 or 5.
Yes, now, as you can see here, whenever you're looking at you stoically taking down the PS5, that it does not look like the most fun process, but it does look like a very satisfying one.
Absolutely, and it is so satisfying taking all of the screws out. Normally I'll talk to my coworkers or talk to or listen to some music with my coworkers and kind of just relax and just kind of do what I need to do, and it's kind of what we do.
I am your coworker.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And so you know that space.
Yes, I absolutely know the painstaking task of taking apart a PS5 or another console, especially when trying to put it back together. A lot of these parts are machine assembled, so they're in there pretty tight. Now, how do you know, because you're about to take the board off any second? Yeah. How do you know what is the right amount of pressure to take the board off?
It's all kind of a feel thing,
It's kind of a feel.
It's kind of a feel thing, You kind of feel out, how it's gonna come off, and of course, I've done one before where I just kind of easily take it off and just put it to the side.
See, it never happens that way. Not for me. Not for most of the people watching this. Yeah. Everybody's just kind of like, well, what's his tips? Well, what is his strategies to take this thing off?
Absolutely.
And as for me, whenever I'm taking it off, it also feels like I'm going to break it. However, I was wrong, and I did break it. There is a little, is that like a little shield over the motherboard there, or what is the importance of that thing that you just took off?
That thing I took off was kind of just getting in my way. You kind of just take that black strip, pull it back while you're pulling on the actual board connector, just so the front I/O is disconnected from the board, and so you don't rip the cable off.
And see, I can see you prying on it right now.
Yeah, you make sure you pry as close to the power supply as you can, so you don't bend those pins.
As close to the power supply. Okay. So now you do have the board out. Good job.
Yep.
Yet again,
well, thank you.
I've seen you go through a ton of these.
Yep.
But now here comes the more exciting part, which is the soldering. Right. Which we do have a solder tech that does do these. We do them in-house. He's just not the one being interviewed here today.
Right.
But as you can see, whenever doing soldering, flux is your friend. Now, I do have a funny story about, soldering and flux and heat guns and soldering irons, as well as most people know that do soldering. I burn myself.
Right.
Now, the thing about burning yourself, there's one of two ways. It's either the overdramatic, I'm about to die right now type of burn, or it's just the painful, just, ooh.
That hurt. Right.
That hurt. Now, you were there whenever I burnt myself.
Yes, I was.
Yes, you were there, and you started asking a ton of questions, which, I didn't appreciate at the time. But as you can see, our soldering tech is taking the soldering, the hot air station, to get the solder to a liquid point. And as soon as he does that, what you'll see is the solder just kind of liquefy, just like this. You'll have like a second to pull on it. Don't pull on it too hard. But you'll just have a second to pull on it. As soon as you just grab it and just pull it up a little bit, it should come off. If you are doing something, and this is an important note, just serious note, if you are doing something and it is not coming off, you are missing a screw, something's not in the right place, or you're just not pulling the way that you need to be pulling. If you pull any harder, it will break. You can ask him about that.
Absolutely. I like how you set me up for that.
Yeah,
I've definitely pulled on some stuff and definitely broken it, but
Call me the Chris Paul of questions.
I've definitely we have some decent, good, knowledgeable solder techs here, and so every time we kind of break something, we have the solder tech there to kind of fix it, make it the right way, and of course we'll always make it right. That's kind of our motto at Apple Pie Repairs, to make everything the right way.
I thought our motto was as easy as pie.
Oh, as easy as pie. That's it.
I thought that was.
We do everything easy as pie, but we also do the right way, the right thing.
All right, Apple Pie Repair, easy as pie, and also we do things the right way. Now, if you look very closely, you can see that we have like a little vacuum kind of soldered sucker thing, and those are for a lack of better words. I know it has an official name for the tool, but
it's a vacuum.
It's a vacuum.
It's a vacuum at the end of the day.
But I do like to call it the solder sucker 3000. But whenever you can kind of see like the hot air station kind of closely touching the board, not completely, but closely touching it, and then there's like a little switch on the gun, the little trigger, and it'll just suck the solder out whenever it reaches that liquid melting point that we got to earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
it kind of sounds like a grumpy chihuahua.
Exactly. And now, what is your favorite part about soldering these boards? Because I know I've had experience with it. You've had experience with it.
Yep, absolutely. Cleaning up the pads, honestly, and that's what we're doing now, and it's just a coincidence. I like cleaning up the iPads.
You like cleaning the pads?
Absolutely.
Like out of everything else, you just like cleaning the pads?
I like cleaning the pads.
That is so boring.
That is so boring.
It's such a snore fest of things to do. But
it's satisfying, man.
I can see that it's satisfying. But whenever you're just kind of like pressing the copper wake against it, that's how I burnt myself the second time.
Yeah.
So I guess it's not as
well. I didn't burn myself that time, so
just wait, it's coming.
Well, we'll see.
So what you can kind of see is kind of the more intricate part of the process, which is kind of taking the soldering iron and then just dragging it across all of those pads. The little gold contacts are called pads. And you'll see him just kind of bridge the connection between the two, not in between the pads, but between that little bit of solder that was left on the board from the last step to the pads in this step.
Right.
But honestly, I cannot say I hate PlayStation pads. I think they're pretty cool. I think they're
better. Taking the PlayStation 5, going back to taking it off. Our solder techs have told us from previous experience that the Series X is a lot harder because they have that high melt solder, and that's a bad thing on Xbox's part, is just having that high melt solder on there, and then you have to heat it up, and you never know when it's hot enough unless you know it's hot enough. And so that's just another thing that Right to Repair is just it's unavailable right there, because it's all at Microsoft's expense. And I feel like Sony's done a good job in showing us that the pads and the pins to the HDMI are well accessible to the user, and especially the repair tech.
Now, I would not say it's accessible to every user.
Right.
Of course,
absolutely.
you need experience with the instruments and the tear down, of course, and a feel for soldering, which only takes. But my first tip whenever it came to soldering is that you just have to have a feel for it.
Right.
And the first thing I said was, what does that mean? Because it feels like there is no direction with soldering, but there's all the direction with it at the same time. You can see how much flux we have there, and flux just does whatever you want your solder to do, which again, completely vague thing. I don't know how I'm able to describe it right now, but even after doing it so many times, it's just kind of difficult to explain. It's just definitely a feel thing.
Yeah, once you've done something, 10,000 times or 10,000 hours, I think it is, it's like, you have that 10,000 hours and you just kind of have the feel for it and you kind of just have mastered it at that point. That's what we are, at Apple Pie Repair, is just masters of our craft, because we've put our 10,000 hours in. We've put time into doing repairs the right way and also doing them the efficient way as well.
Yes, and we always try to get things back to the customer in a timely manner. There's nothing worse than a customer that is mad about how long it's taking. As you can see, he's just kind of bridging those solder points. You kind of see a ramp type shape whenever it comes to the connection between those pins in the HDMI to the pads on the board. It's just kind of sloping like this. Again, completely ambiguous thing that you would not know unless you looked at it for a very long time, an obnoxious amount of time. But as you see him flip the board over, he's going to apply some solder to each one of the anchor points and then melt it so that it goes through the holes. Now, what was your soldering nightmare experience? I know everybody has one.
Well, I had to run some jumpers on a board, and so that requires, a little bit of copper wire and running it from one pad to a ground pad and then so on and so forth. And it's just, you're kind of just running pads, and it's from somebody being inexperienced and tearing out the pads.
Absolutely.
And when you tear up the pads, you have to run jumpers. And it, unfortunately, this was unrepairable because all the pads were off of the board, and some of that green layer that you have on that board, it was completely gone. And so we were like, yeah, this is unrepairable. You've totally ruined the board. I'm sorry about that. But you have to take it somewhere else.
Yes.
Or you have to take it to the manufacturer. I'm sorry. We usually at that point we'll tell people, hey, you have to go to the manufacturer now, because there's no one that can really do it besides the manufacturers that have the fancy machines, and they have the big machines like Sony and Microsoft, of course.
Yes, and you can kind of see him like cleaning everything off. Now, soldering is also an art. It's kind of like brushing paint onto a canvas.
Absolutely.
As lame as that sounds, especially for a bunch of tech nerds that are here all day looking at phones and looking at boards. But as you can kind of see from like the top view, as it's about to show, because it's about to like zoom in more towards the top, you can kind of see that there's no solder just kind of like bunched up at the top, which is what a lot of mistakes of people that are very inexperienced with solder have.
Absolutely.
But with that, the repair is pretty much done. Well, what's been your favorite part about the PS5 teardown and sort of putting it back together?
Putting it back together is a whole different beast. You have to put that board in just the right way, make sure those connectors are out of the way, snap it down into the power supply, and just connect everything in. But, there's not a lot of connectors, and so, you put that heatsink back on like I did in the video, and, you kind of just reverse the actions that I did in the teardown, and you're kind of just there, and then, boom, you got a PS5, and it's ready to go, and it's ready to go out to the customer.
Well, unlike my coworker here, I don't have a favorite part of this repair, but I love doing it. I like the entire process of feeling that I'm doing something really, really important. But until next time, until our next teardown, I'm Zeke. This has been Jacob. And I'll see you next time.